an actor of enormous note throughout the world, and it's Carol Baker. Carol, welcome into Australia.
Thank you very much, and hello to everybody in Melbourne and to everybody in Australia.
Now, off air you were telling us you've had this dreadful Australian flu.
Well, I know. I was all over the Christmas holidays and New Year's. I was sick for about 6 weeks, and I'd been injected against the Asian flu, and then I was told this was an Australian flu. And I've always thought everything from Australia was wonderful, but I mean, you could have kept the flu.
Carol, let's go back to your early days. Of course, you kicked off your career in a magic act, didn't you?
That's right.
Tell us about that act.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to be in show business because I wanted to leave the small town where I was living in Pennsylvania and get myself to New York. And so I had been dancing for years. My mother had given me dancing lessons, and I started dancing at various little clubs and places. When I say clubs, I mean family clubs and so forth, maybe earning $20 for doing a tap dance. And I met up with a magician, a retired magician who'd invented an act for a woman called a magic jewel act. And I didn't want to give up my dancing, so I danced and produced jewels at the same time.
And of course you had TV commercials too, as in Coca-Cola.
Well, yeah, I mean that when I wasn't terribly successful as a lady magician, and I couldn't get any other jobs, commercials were a lifesaver.
Yeah. Now let's go back to the days of 1956. You starred in The Giant. Now this was to be James Dean's last movie.
That's right.
How did you feel when he died just after making of that movie?
Well, it was actually so horrible because I wasn't finished working yet. He had finished a little earlier than some of the rest of the major cast. And I was sitting in the projection room with Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson, George Stevens was in the back, and they were showing us the dailies or the rushes from the day before. And suddenly the lights came on in the projection room, and George Stevens stood up, and it was like all the blood drained out of him. The man was in total shock. And his son, George Jr., was in the Air Force then and flying around a lot. So my first thought was that something had happened to his son. And there was, I don't know, an interminable pause. And finally he whispered, "Jimmy Dean has just died in a road accident."
That would have been devastating for you.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we were just all totally shocked. I mean, it just came out of nowhere. It's one thing if someone is ill for a long time or if they're old, but a young person like that.
The first movie you made, Easy to Love, Carol.
Oh, well, yeah, I just had a tiny little part in that. I consider Giant my first movie, and George Stevens actually introduced me in that. Most people think because Baby Doll was the one that made me such a big star that that was my first movie, but actually it was my second, and what happened was they were both released within a month of each other.
And of course, with Baby Doll, you were nominated for an Academy Award.
Yes,
but
that's right.
It became quite a controversial movie, didn't it?
It was indeed, yes, because the Catholic Legion of Decency, the censorship board of the Catholics in the United States, took offense with the movie. And they were in a sort of a long-running battle with the motion picture's own censorship board. And they came to loggerheads on this one because the motion picture industry passed this with a passable whatever it was, and the Legion said, "Okay, you didn't consult us. We're going to stop this from showing anywhere." They did a pretty good job. I want to tell you one of my favorite stories about Australia. When I did The Carpetbaggers, which was a huge success there, you did call it The Carpetbaggers, didn't you?
Yes, we did, yes.
The Harold Robbins?
Yes.
Well, everybody was asking for me to, come to their city and visit and so forth, and I did do a very long tour of the United States and a little bit of Europe, but I had to get on with my career and I had to do my next film. And the Australians were so sweet because what they did is I had a transparent dress with diamonds on it, and as I couldn't come to Australia, they sent my dress from city to city. In every movie theater where the Carpetbaggers played, they chose a girl who fit into the dress like a Cinderella and presented her on stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you know that story?
Yes, I heard that one. Yes.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely story. Now, last year, 97, The Game, and of course you starred there with Michael Douglas, Sean Penn.
That's right.
Now, perhaps an Academy Award nomination?
Oh, I don't know. There's the beginnings of the awards are starting, like with the Golden Globe and the New York Film Critics and so forth. And there's only 5 places, and so far I haven't been in any of those 5 places.
Well, let's cross our fingers for The Game for you, because we haven't seen The Game in Australia yet.
Yeah.
But, it's on its way.
It's an intriguing.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely intriguing movie, and I was delighted to be in it. There aren't so many parts when you reach a certain age, in films. There aren't that many parts for women in Hollywood anymore in films, and certainly, you get past your 20s, and there aren't many parts. So when a wonderful part comes by, with Michael Douglas in a big film like this, I'm just thrilled to get the part.
Sensational, isn't it? You've starred with some great people, haven't you?
Oh, boy, have I had leading men. I got together a folder last week because I was doing an interview for some cable channel, and they wanted to talk about my leading men. And I worked, of course, I was the love interest of Jimmy Dean in Giant. And then in The Big Country, I was the love interest of both Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston.
Yes.
In one of my first films called The Miracle, Roger Moore had his first big part, and he was my romance, or at least one of them. And I was able to be with Clark Gable. I starred in his third to his last film called But Not For Me.
In those early days of starring in these wonderful movies, did your parents ever say to you, go and get a real job?
Well, no, not when it reached that point, but early on when I said I wanted to be in show business, my father was absolutely outraged, and he refused to send me to acting school and insisted that I take typing lessons.
Sure.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, I'm a very good typist to this day, and I don't regret that.
And you'd have to type up your own scripts, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Tell us about the part that you play.
Well, it's a story of a family and a flood. And I'm married to Richard Crenna, and one of my sons is Rick Schroeder. Both of whom are very, very important on television here in America.
And here.
And the land has been in her family, in my family, for generations. It's this beautiful farm, but it rains day after day after day, and the levee starts to fill up, and it's to a dangerous level. And then the floods come, and the house is going to wash away. In the meantime, while all of this is going on, we have our own family problems. We have the prodigal son. We have another son who is slow and dim-witted that has to be dealt with. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful story. It's like they used to make movies in the 40s and 50s, you know?
The ones we want
now
to
they
see.
can only do it on television, tell real stories about families and delve into people's characters, and that's terribly exciting.
Have you had a chance to see Titanic yet, Carol?
Oh, yes, I did.
What did you think of that?
Well, I thought, I couldn't catch my breath. The whole disaster part of it was just overwhelming. Some of the casting I wasn't very happy with.
Yes, and tell us about that.
Well, I thought that the young girl and the older woman, the main character that the story was about. I mean, one the young girl had dark skin and dark red hair and dark eyes, and the woman when she was and they kept cross dissolving, and the woman when the survivor, when she was like 100, had these clear light blue eyes, very light skin, and what would have been, very, very blonde hair when she was younger. The voice wasn't at all the same. The build wasn't at all the same. And I don't know how they could think that you were going to believe that this was the same person as a young girl and as an old woman.
You make a good point, because I saw it last night, and that was running through my mind too.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a bit hard to take. But, you see, in this country, they didn't pick that up. They didn't criticize for that reason, because I think they thought that the disaster was, so worthwhile seeing, which it was. I mean, it is just so spectacular.
Carol, you've been a wonderful guest in the program tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope to get there, and I hope to meet you. And please give my love to all your countrymen.
We certainly will. And if you do get to the shores of Australia, you must come down to Melbourne and see Bill and myself.
I would love to.
We'd like to have some time with you.
Thank you for calling.
Okay, Carol, a very good night to you.